I stood in my empty living room divorce papers, trembling in my hands, watching my husband Marcus load his belongings into his truck. With Jessica, my former secretary, the woman I had trusted with my business, was now wearing my grandmother's diamond necklace, the one Marcus claimed he sold to pay our bills. 3 months of lies crashed down on me as I realized the affair had been happening right under my nose. Marcus called over his shoulder, laughing about finally being free from his financially useless wife. Little did he know I had just secretly sold my tech startup for $800,000. 3 months earlier, life seemed promising despite the undercurrents of tension that had begun creeping into my marriage. My customer relationship management app, Client Flow, had taken 5 years to develop, and companies were finally recognizing its value for streamlining small business operations. Working alongside my business partner, Tyler Brennan, a brilliant programmer from Austin, we had built something revolutionary that helped local businesses manage their customer relationships more effectively than anything else on the market. Dr. Patricia Williams, my mentor from Stanford Business School, had been instrumental in connecting us with potential investors. Her network opened doors that would have remained closed to a small startup like ours. Patricia believed in client flow from the beginning, often saying that genuine innovation comes from solving real problems that people face every day. But Marcus grew increasingly resentful as my success expanded. What started as supportive comments about my work gradually shifted into subtle criticisms about my priorities. He began suggesting that I was becoming obsessed with the business, neglecting our home life and our responsibilities as a married couple. These conversations usually happened late at night when I returned from client meetings or development sessions with Tyler. The dynamics changed completely when I hired Jessica Martinez as my executive assistant 6 months before everything fell apart. She was 26, fresh out of college, with a business administration degree, and possessed an impressive resume filled with internships at tech companies throughout California. During her interview, Jessica demonstrated exceptional organizational skills and seemed genuinely excited about joining a growing startup environment. Initially, Jessica proved invaluable. She handled scheduling, managed client communications, and coordinated meetings with an efficiency that allowed me to focus on product development and strategic planning. Tyler appreciated having someone who could manage the administrative side while we concentrated on technical improvements and feature development. However, Marcus seemed unusually interested in Jessica's background and qualifications. He started asking detailed questions about her work experience, her family situation, and her career goals. At first, I appreciated his interest in my business activities, interpreting it as renewed support for my entrepreneurial efforts. The shift became more noticeable when Marcus began insisting on managing our joint financial accounts more closely. He claimed that my focus on the business was causing me to lose track of our household expenses and financial obligations. Marcus presented spreadsheets showing how much money I was spending on business development, arguing that client flow was barely breaking, even despite my time investment. These financial discussions became increasingly frequent and uncomfortable. Marcus would point out every business expense, questioning whether client lunches and conference attendance were truly necessary for company growth. He started referring to my networking events as expensive social gatherings that produced minimal tangible results. Around this time, I noticed Jessica staying later at the office more frequently. She explained that she wanted to ensure all client communications were handled promptly and that project deadlines were met without any administrative delays. Her dedication impressed me, and I began relying on her judgment for various business decisions. Marcus started scheduling what he called important business dinners, claiming he was exploring new career opportunities that could better support our household finances. These dinners happened 2 or 3 times per week, always at upscale restaurants in downtown areas where networking opportunities were supposedly abundant. The tension escalated when Jessica began making seemingly innocent observations about work-life balance and relationship priorities. During casual conversations, she would mention articles she had read about successful women who struggled to maintain healthy marriages while building demanding careers. These comments felt supportive initially, but they began echoing the exact concerns Marcus had been expressing about my business focus. Marcus started drawing direct comparisons between Jessica's supportive nature and what he perceived as my increasing emotional distance. He would praise Jessica's ability to balance professionalism with genuine care for others, suggesting that her approach to relationships demonstrated maturity and wisdom that came from understanding what truly mattered in life. The breakthrough opportunity arrived when TechFlow Solutions, a major software company based in Seattle, approached us about acquiring ClientFlow. Their offer was substantial, recognizing the value we had created and the potential for scaling our solution across larger markets. Tyler and I spent weeks analyzing the proposal, consulting with Patricia about the implications and opportunities. Something felt wrong at home, though I could not identify the specific source of my unease. Marcus's behavior had become unpredictable, alternating between excessive attention and complete emotional withdrawal. His comments about my work became sharper, more personal, often targeting my decision-making abilities and leadership skills rather than just questioning time allocation. Jessica's presence in our business operations had expanded significantly. She was handling client relationships independently, making decisions about project priorities, and even attending strategy meetings with Tyler and me. Her insights were valuable, but I began noticing that her suggestions often aligned perfectly with criticisms Marcus had raised privately about my management approach. The acquisition discussions progressed while I kept them completely confidential from Marcus. My instincts told me to be cautious about sharing this information until I understood what was happening in my personal life. Patricia encouraged this discretion, reminding me that major business decisions require clear thinking without emotional complications. One evening, I discovered text messages between Marcus and Jessica that changed everything. Marcus had left his phone on our kitchen counter while he showered, and it buzzed repeatedly with notifications. Glancing at the screen, I saw Jessica's name and a message preview that read, "We need to figure out how to get rid of the dead weight soon." My hands shook as I read their conversation history. Months of planning were laid out in detail, how they had been coordinating to undermine my confidence, isolate me from support systems, and position themselves to take control of everything I had built. They discussed my weaknesses, with clinical detachment analyzing how to exploit my trust and dedication to destroy my sense of self-worth. The affair had been strategic from the beginning. Jessica had taken the job specifically to get close to Marcus, and together they had crafted an elaborate scheme to discredit me professionally and personally. They planned to present themselves as the victims of my alleged instability, while positioning Marcus as the long-suffering husband who deserved compensation for his sacrifices. The discovery of their conspiracy launched me into action rather than despair. I secretly accepted TechFlow's acquisition offer, working with attorney Samuel Rodriguez to structure the deal through carefully established legal entities that Marcus could not access or discover. Samuel specialized in protecting business owners during divorce proceedings, and his expertise proved invaluable in safeguarding my interests. While I was building legal protections around my assets, Marcus escalated his psychological manipulation campaign. He began documenting our conversations, claiming he needed evidence of my increasingly erratic behavior for his own protection. Marcus would provoke arguments about minor household issues, then record my emotional responses as proof of my instability. Jessica's sabotage of my business operations became more sophisticated and dangerous. She started deleting important client files from our shared systems, claiming technical glitches were responsible for the lost data. Critical phone calls from potential customers went unanswered, while she was supposedly handling all communications. Jessica began spreading rumors among our professional contacts about my unpredictable mood swings and questionable business judgment. Tyler noticed these irregularities before I fully understood their scope. During one of our weekly strategy sessions, he mentioned that several clients had complained about receiving contradictory information from our office. Some reported that Jessica had told them I was unavailable for important meetings due to personal issues, while others said she had rescheduled appointments without my knowledge or approval. The social humiliation campaign intensified when Marcus started bringing Jessica to community events as his assistant. At our neighborhood association meetings, charity fundraisers, and even family gatherings, Jessica appeared at Marcus's side, while I was supposedly too busy with work to attend these important social obligations. Marcus's explanations for Jessica's presence became increasingly elaborate and demeaning. He would tell friends and family members that Jessica was helping him manage his responsibilities because I had become unreliable and self-absorbed. According to his narrative, Jessica represented the kind of supportive partner that successful men needed to achieve their goals and maintain their social standing. The technological aspect of their surveillance shocked me when I discovered that Marcus had been accessing my business emails through Jessica's computer access. She had been forwarding confidential client information, financial data, and strategic planning documents to Marcus, who was building a comprehensive file of everything related to client flows, operations, and value. Jessica's manipulation extended to planting evidence that suggested I was experiencing severe mental health problems. She would leave psychological self-help books on my desk, with highlighted passages about anxiety disorders and depression. Office supplies would disappear and reappear in strange locations, making me question my own memory and organizational abilities. Marcus began recording our private conversations without my knowledge, collecting hours of audio that he planned to use as evidence of my alleged emotional instability. He would deliberately provoke me about sensitive topics, then capture my frustrated responses as proof that I was becoming increasingly difficult and unreasonable to live with. The professional damage escalated when Jessica contacted several of our major clients directly suggesting that they might want to consider alternative service providers because client flow was experiencing internal management problems. She implied that my leadership was becoming unreliable and that the company's future was uncertain due to my personal issues. Dr. Williams became my crucial ally during this period, helping me document the startup sale legally while maintaining absolute confidentiality. Her experience with women entrepreneurs facing similar challenges provided both practical guidance and emotional support. Patricia helped me understand that what I was experiencing was a form of economic abuse designed to strip away my independence and self-confidence. The financial manipulation reached new levels when Marcus announced to our mutual friends that he was deeply concerned about my fiscal irresponsibility. He claimed that my business ventures were draining our family resources and that he was struggling to manage our household expenses because of my poor financial decisions. Marcus's public relations campaign positioned him as a devoted husband trying to support an increasingly unstable wife. He would share carefully edited stories about my behavior at dinner parties and social gatherings, building sympathy for his situation, while casting doubt on my mental stability and business competence. The breaking point came when I caught them in our home office late one night going through my private business documents and discussing how to claim that client flow was worthless, while secretly planning to steal our client database for their own competing venture. They were photographing confidential agreements, copying contact lists, and analyzing our proprietary software development processes. Jessica had detailed notes about our most valuable clients, including their budget ranges, contract renewal dates, and specific business pain points that client flow was solving. Marcus was helping her develop a business plan that would directly compete with my company using stolen intellectual property and client relationships. Their conversation revealed the true scope of their conspiracy. They had been planning this systematic destruction of my life and business for over a year, carefully coordinating each step to ensure maximum damage, while protecting themselves from legal consequence. They discussed my personality traits like military strategists, analyzing an enemy's weaknesses, identifying exactly how to exploit my trust and dedication against me. The most chilling aspect of their planning was how they intended to use my own success against me. They wanted to claim that my business achievements proved I was neglecting my family responsibilities, while simultaneously arguing that the business itself was worthless and that they deserved compensation for tolerating my obsessive behavior. Marcus filed for divorce on a Tuesday morning in early November, presenting papers that painted me as a financially irresponsible spouse who had abandoned my marital duties in pursuit of a failing business venture. His attorney's filing claimed that I had systematically drained our family resources while providing no meaningful financial contribution to our household stability and security. The divorce petition demanded alimony payments of $4,000 per month for 5 years, claiming that Marcus had sacrificed his own career advancement opportunities to support my entrepreneurial pursuits. According to his legal arguments, he deserved compensation for the income he had foregone while serving as my primary emotional and financial supporter throughout Client Flow's development. Jessica submitted her resignation as my executive assistant on the same day the divorce papers were filed, claiming that I had created an increasingly hostile work environment that made her position untenable. Her resignation letter detailed alleged incidents of verbal abuse, unreasonable demands, and erratic behavior that supposedly demonstrated my unfitness for leadership responsibilities. Marcus's attorney, Catherine Walsh, had been secretly consulting with him for over 6 months before filing the divorce petition. Catherine specialized in high-asset divorces and had built her reputation by securing favorable settlements for clients who could demonstrate their spouse's financial misconduct or emotional instability. The evidence Catherine presented in court painted a devastating picture of my alleged business failures and personal shortcomings. She had financial documents showing client flows, operating expenses without revealing our revenue streams or client growth. The presentation made my company appear to be a money-losing hobby rather than a legitimate business operation. Jessica's workplace harassment complaint added another layer of legal complexity to my situation. She claimed that I had subjected her to emotional abuse, impossible deadlines, and public humiliation that created an atmosphere of fear and intimidation. Her detailed accusations included specific dates, times, and witnesses who could supposedly corroborate her experiences. Marcus moved out of our house immediately after filing for divorce, taking furniture, electronics, and personal items that he claimed were his individual property rather than marital assets. He rented a luxury apartment across town and began living openly with Jessica, presenting their relationship as a natural development that occurred after our marriage had completely deteriorated. The joint bank account freezing left me apparently penniless overnight. Marcus had obtained a temporary restraining order that prevented me from accessing funds that he claimed were necessary to protect our marital assets from my alleged financial recklessness. The court order made it appear that I was being prevented from squandering money that belonged to both of us. Catherine's legal strategy included character assassination through carefully orchestrated social media campaigns and community gossip networks. Anonymous messages were sent to our mutual friends sharing selective information about my supposed mental health crisis and business failures. These communications always included just enough truth to seem credible while omitting crucial context that would have supported my position. The narrative that spread through our social circles portrayed Marcus as a victim of my increasing instability and professional obsession. Friends who had known us for years began questioning my version of events, especially when Jessica corroborated Marcus's claims about my difficult behavior and unrealistic expectations. Local business community members received similar anonymous communications, questioning my competence and reliability as a business partner. Several potential clients postponed meetings with client flow, citing concerns about the company's stability during my personal crisis. The professional damage threatened to become permanent if the situation continued. Tyler faced increasing pressure to distance himself from our business partnership. Anonymous complaints were filed with various business associations, claiming that client flow was operating unethically and that Tyler should consider protecting his own professional reputation by severing ties with my company. Marcus's public statements positioned him as a concerned husband who had tried everything possible to support his wife through her difficulties. He gave interviews to local media outlets presenting himself as an advocate for men who sacrifice their own careers to support their spouse's dreams, only to be abandoned when those dreams become more important than family relationships. The settlement demand that Catherine presented was designed to destroy me financially and professionally. In addition to the monthly alimony payments, Marcus wanted half ownership of client flow, claiming that his emotional and financial support during the company's development made him an equal partner in its potential future value. The legal documents described client flow as a struggling startup with minimal assets and uncertain prospects, making Marcus's demand for half ownership appear reasonable rather than predatory. Catherine had calculated that I would be forced to accept these terms rather than face the continued legal expenses and public humiliation of a prolonged court battle. Marcus's confidence grew as his strategy appeared to be succeeding. He began making public statements about his plans to help rebuild Client Flow's reputation and operations, positioning himself as the stable leadership that the company needed to overcome the damage caused by my mismanagement. The most devastating aspect of their legal trap was how it used my own success against me. Every achievement I had accomplished through years of hard work was being reframed as evidence of my selfishness and family neglect. My dedication to building something meaningful was presented as proof that I was unsuited for marriage and partnership. The timeline they had constructed made their affair appear to be a consequence of my failures rather than a betrayal that had preceded and caused many of our marital problems. Jessica was portrayed as an innocent professional who had tried to help our family situation by supporting Marcus through his difficult marriage before their relationship naturally evolved into something deeper. The $300,000 settlement demand represented their calculation of how much money they could extract from me, while leaving enough destruction to ensure I could never rebuild my reputation or business relationships. They wanted to profit from their betrayal while ensuring that I remained isolated and powerless to threaten their new life together. The modest apartment I rented on Maple Street became my symbol of apparent defeat, a stark contrast to the spacious home Marcus and I had shared throughout our marriage. The furnished studio contained only essential items, creating an image of financial desperation that supported Marcus's narrative about my business failures and irresponsible spending habits. Marcus and Jessica's engagement announcement appeared in the local newspaper society section just 3 weeks after our divorce papers were filed. The accompanying photograph showed them at an upscale restaurant, with Jessica wearing an emerald engagement ring that Marcus claimed he had purchased using money he had saved by carefully managing our household expenses, despite my financial recklessness. Former friends began avoiding me with increasing consistency, crossing streets to prevent uncomfortable conversations, and declining social invitations where my presence might create tension. The isolation was methodical and complete, extending from casual acquaintances to people I had considered close allies throughout my adult life. Jessica's new consulting business, Strategic Solutions LLC, launched with a client roster that suspiciously resembled Client Flow's customer base. Her marketing materials promised personalized attention and reliable service for small businesses, seeking efficient customer relationship management using language that closely mirrored the value propositions I had spent years developing. Several of Client Flow's longtime clients mysteriously terminated their contracts, citing budget constraints or changing business priorities. When Tyler attempted to contact these clients directly, he discovered that they had already signed agreements with Strategic Solutions, often within days of ending their relationships with our company. Marcus's public statements about his former marriage became increasingly sympathetic and concerned, presenting himself as a devoted husband who had struggled to help his wife overcome personal challenges that ultimately proved too difficult to manage within their relationship. He spoke at local business association meetings about the importance of maintaining work-life balance and supporting family stability above personal ambition. The media attention that surrounded our divorce proceedings consistently favored Marcus's version of events. Local reporters found his story compelling because it reinforced familiar narratives about successful women who sacrificed their families for career advancement. Jessica's perspective as the former employee who witnessed my alleged workplace misconduct added credibility to their coordinated public relations campaign. Jessica established her new office in the same building where Client Flow had operated, securing a lease for the suite directly across the hallway from our former workspace. Her proximity allowed her to intercept potential clients who came looking for our services, redirecting them to Strategic Solutions with explanations about Client Flow's uncertain future under my leadership. Marcus applied for business loans using documents that fraudulently claimed partial ownership of Client Flow, presenting financial statements that inflated his role in the company's development while minimizing my contributions. The loan applications described him as a co-founder who deserved recognition and compensation for his intellectual property contributions to our software development process. Tyler brought me evidence that Jessica had approached him months earlier with offers to improve Client Flow's operations without my involvement. She had suggested that my leadership style was holding the company back, and that a management restructuring could unlock significant growth opportunities if handled discreetly and professionally. The business loan fraud that Marcus was attempting represented a new level of criminal behavior that went beyond their affair and divorce strategy. He was using forged documents that claimed ownership rights to intellectual property he had never helped develop, planning to use the borrowed money to expand Jessica's competing business, while leaving me responsible for loan repayments. Dr. Williams provided me with detailed documentation of Client Flow's true market value and growth potential information that I kept completely confidential, while Marcus continued claiming that the business was worthless. Her analysis showed that our customer relationship management software had significant competitive advantages that made it attractive for acquisition by larger companies. The emotional toll of watching everything I had built being systematically destroyed required tremendous self-control to endure without revealing my hidden advantages. Each day brought new evidence of Marcus and Jessica's betrayal, while I maintained the appearance of a defeated entrepreneur who was losing everything she had worked to achieve. Marcus's overconfidence became apparent when he began publicly bragging about his plans to help turn client flow into a profitable operation once he gained legal ownership through the divorce settlement. He spoke at networking events about the importance of strong leadership and stable management in technology companies. Jessica pressured Marcus to accelerate their timeline for gaining control of my remaining business assets, arguing that prolonged legal proceedings were expensive and unnecessary, since I appeared to have no resources to mount effective resistance. She wanted him to demand immediate surrender of all client flow related property and intellectual property rights. The private investigator I secretly hired, Diana Foster, began documenting their activities with sophisticated surveillance equipment and financial analysis tools. Diana specialized in corporate fraud cases and had extensive experience gathering evidence that would be admissible in both civil and criminal proceedings. Marcus's attempt to access the accounts where he believed my startup sale proceeds were hidden revealed the extent of their surveillance and financial manipulation. He expected to find evidence of hidden assets that he could claim in the divorce settlement, not realizing that the money was protected in legal structures he could never access or discover. The psychological pressure they applied was designed to force me into accepting their settlement demands quickly before I could mount any meaningful legal resistance. They wanted me to surrender completely, signing over all business rights and agreeing to pay alimony that would finance their new life together. My apparent isolation and financial desperation encouraged them to become increasingly bold in their fraud and manipulation, not realizing that every action they took was being carefully documented by professionals who specialized in exposing exactly these types of sophisticated betrayal schemes. The local business community's perception of my situation reached its lowest point when anonymous reports suggested that client flow was being investigated for various regulatory violations, and that my leadership had created legal liabilities for clients and business partners. These false reports damaged relationships I had spent years building and threatened to become permanent regardless of the truth. Marcus and Jessica's wedding planning proceeded rapidly, with announcements describing their ceremony as a celebration of love that had emerged from difficult circumstance. They portrayed their relationship as proof that genuine partnership could flourish even in challenging situations, positioning themselves as an inspiring example for other couples facing similar struggles. The private investigation firm of Diana Foster and Associates began systematic documentation of Marcus and Jessica's fraudulent activities, while I maintained the appearance of a struggling entrepreneur facing complete defeat. Diana's team specialized in complex financial fraud cases and understood how to gather evidence that would be compelling in both criminal and civil court proceedings. Working with forensic accountant Robert Murphy, we traced the sophisticated network of lies and document forgery that Marcus and Jessica had constructed to support their theft of client flow's intellectual property and client relationships. Robert's analysis revealed patterns of systematic fraud that extended far beyond simple adultery or divorce deception. Tyler's cooperation proved invaluable in documenting Jessica's sabotage activities and theft of proprietary business information. He had been quietly preserving copies of deleted files, recording unusual client conversations, and maintaining detailed logs of Jessica's suspicious behavior throughout her employment with our company. The evidence we gathered showed that Marcus had been using my personal credit and financial information to secure funding for Jessica's competing business without my knowledge or consent. He had forged signatures on loan applications, created false financial statements, and presented himself as a legitimate business partner with rights to client flow's assets and customer base. Jessica's strategic solutions business model was built entirely on intellectual property stolen from client flow, using client lists she had copied during her employment and proprietary software processes she had no legal right to utilize. Her consulting services replicated our competitive advantages while claiming to offer superior alternatives to what she described as my unreliable and unstable leadership. The strategic misinformation campaign I launched involved planning false details about client flow's financial situation and my personal circumstances, designed to test whether Marcus and Jessica were monitoring my activities through illegal surveillance or unauthorized access to private information. Their responses to this false information confirmed the extent of their spying and manipulation. Marcus's overconfidence led him to make increasingly bold public statements about his plans for Client Flow's future operations, not realizing that every statement he made was being recorded and analyzed for evidence of his fraudulent claims about ownership and management authority. His bragging provided crucial proof of his criminal intentions. Jessica's pressure on Marcus to accelerate their asset seizure timeline created opportunities for them to make mistakes that exposed the true scope of their conspiracy. Their urgency led to sloppy documentation and careless communication that provided additional evidence for law enforcement investigators. Dr. Williams connected me with attorney Angela Thompson, who specialized in complex business fraud cases involving divorce proceedings and intellectual property theft. Angela's firm had extensive experience protecting entrepreneurs from exactly the types of sophisticated fraud that Marcus and Jessica were attempting. The client relationships I secretly rebuilt were based on honest communication about the situation Client Flow was facing and the steps we were taking to protect our business integrity. Many clients appreciated my transparency and offered support that contradicted Marcus's claims about my professional reputation and industry standing. Marcus's attempted access to hidden bank accounts triggered security protocols that alerted both my legal team and law enforcement agencies about unauthorized attempts to access protected financial assets. His desperation to find money he believed I was hiding provided additional evidence of his criminal intent. Jessica's business expansion plans required her to make claims about her experience and qualifications that were easily contradicted by employment records and professional reference. Her attempts to present herself as an established business consultant exposed the fraudulent foundation of her entire operation. The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit became involved when Robert Murphy's forensic analysis revealed evidence of bank fraud, identity theft, and other federal offenses that Marcus had committed in attempting to steal Client Flow's assets and secure funding for Jessica's competing business. Angela Thompson's legal strategy involved allowing Marcus and Jessica to continue their fraudulent activities while we documented everything for maximum impact in both criminal and civil proceedings. She understood that premature revelation of our evidence would allow them to destroy documentation and flee before facing full legal consequences. Marcus's family members began receiving anonymous information about his true character and the extent of his betrayal, designed to ensure that his support network understood the reality of his behavior before his crimes became public knowledge. Their shock and disappointment added to the pressure he was facing. Jessica's background investigation revealed a pattern of similar behavior in previous employment situations, where she had attempted to gain access to confidential business information and develop inappropriate relationships with married supervisors. Her employment history showed a consistent pattern of boundary violations and ethical misconduct. The wedding venue booking that Marcus and Jessica made required financial guarantees and deposits that exceeded their legitimate income sources, suggesting that they were planning to use stolen assets or fraudulent loan proceeds to finance their celebration. This evidence supported criminal charges related to the proceeds of their fraud. Marcus's public statements about his sacrifices during our marriage were contradicted by employment records, tax documents, and other evidence showing that he had actually benefited significantly from my business success, while contributing minimal support to either our household or Client Flow's development. The coordination between Diana Foster's investigation team, Angela Thompson's legal strategy, and law enforcement agencies created a comprehensive case that would address all aspects of Marcus and Jessica's conspiracy. Every element of their betrayal would face appropriate legal consequences through multiple jurisdictions and enforcement agencies. Jessica's attempts to recruit other Client Flow employees to her competing business involved offers that clearly violated non-compete agreements and solicitation restrictions, providing additional grounds for both criminal charges and civil lawsuits that could destroy her business and personal finances. The psychological pressure campaign that Marcus and Jessica had used against me was documented through saved communications, witness statements, and expert analysis that demonstrated a pattern of deliberate emotional abuse designed to support their financial fraud and business theft schemes. Marcus's confidence in their strategy's success led him to make increasingly detailed statements about his post-divorce plans, not realizing that every conversation was providing evidence that would be used to prosecute him for multiple federal and state crimes related to fraud, theft, and conspiracy. The wedding reception at the Grand Vista Country Club provided the perfect venue for my carefully orchestrated revelation of Marcus and Jessica's extensive criminal conspiracy. I appeared at their celebration as a gesture of forgiveness, wearing a simple dress that reinforced their narrative about my financial desperation, while concealing the sophisticated legal and technological preparation that would destroy them completely. Marcus and Jessica welcomed my attendance as final proof of their victory over my resistance to their demands. They interpreted my presence as surrender, believing that I had finally accepted their version of events and was ready to sign over all remaining business assets without further legal resistance. The multimedia presentation I had prepared appeared to be a nostalgic wedding gift, a collection of memories from Marcus's and my relationship that would demonstrate my acceptance of our marriage's end and their new beginning together. The projection screen and audio system had been tested earlier with the venue's technical staff, who believed they were helping facilitate a generous gesture from a former spouse. Angela Thompson and her legal team coordinated with FBI agents who were positioned throughout the reception venue, ready to make arrests once the evidence was presented publicly, and Marcus and Jessica's crimes were exposed to the assembled guests. The timing was crucial to prevent any attempt to flee or destroy remaining evidence. The video montage began with seemingly innocent footage of our early relationship wedding photos and family gatherings that created a sense of nostalgia and emotional reflection among the wedding guests. Marcus appeared touched by what he interpreted as my acknowledgement of the good times we had shared before our marriage deteriorated. The transition to recorded conversations between Marcus and Jessica revealed their detailed planning of my systematic destruction, including audio of them discussing how to exploit my trust and dedication to steal everything I had built. Their voices clearly identified them as they analyzed my personality traits, like military strategists planning an enemy's defeat. Financial documents displayed on the projection screen showed Marcus's forged loan applications, Jessica's theft of intellectual property, and their coordinated efforts to present false information to courts' clients and financial institutions. The evidence demonstrated systematic fraud that extended across multiple jurisdictions and involved numerous federal crimes. The $800,000 startup acquisition became public knowledge as tax documents, bank records, and legal agreements appeared on the screen, showing that Marcus's claims about my financial worthlessness were completely fabricated. The contrast between his public statements and the reality of client flow's success was stark and undeniable. Jessica's employment history appeared next, showing her pattern of boundary violations, inappropriate relationships with supervisors, and attempts to steal confidential information from previous employers. Her background contradicted every claim she had made about her professional qualifications and ethical standards. The surveillance footage that Diana Foster had gathered showed Marcus and Jessica accessing my private office, copying confidential documents, and discussing how to destroy evidence of their fraud, while celebrating their anticipated success in stealing my business and personal assets. FBI agents approached Marcus and Jessica's table as arrest warrants were displayed on the projection screen, listing the specific federal charges they faced for bank fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, and other crimes related to their systematic betrayal and theft activities. Marcus's family members and wedding guests witnessed documentation of forged signatures, false financial statements, and illegal surveillance activities that revealed the true extent of his deception. Many guests expressed shock and disgust as they realized how thoroughly they had been manipulated by Marcus's carefully constructed lies. Jessica's Strategic Solutions business license revocation appeared on the screen, along with evidence that her consulting services violated multiple regulatory requirements and ethical standards. Her professional reputation was destroyed instantly as clients and industry contacts learned about her fraudulent business practices. The medical records that Marcus had attempted to forge to support claims about my mental health were revealed as fabricated documents designed to provide false evidence for divorce proceedings. The comparison between his forged papers and authentic medical records showed clear evidence of document fraud and perjury. Marcus's attempted access to protected bank accounts was documented through security footage and digital records that showed his repeated efforts to steal money that belonged solely to me. His desperation to find hidden assets provided compelling evidence of his criminal intent and fraudulent claims about marital property. The wedding guests learned that they had been unknowing participants in a celebration financed through criminal fraud, as evidence showed that Marcus and Jessica had used stolen assets and fraudulent loan proceeds to pay for their expensive ceremony and reception. Jessica's family members discovered that their daughter had built her entire adult life around deception and theft, using relationships and employment opportunities to gain access to confidential information that she could exploit for personal gain. The video presentation concluded with a detailed timeline showing how Marcus and Jessica's conspiracy had evolved over more than a year, demonstrating that their affair was always secondary to their primary goal of destroying my business and stealing my assets. Marcus's arrest for federal bank fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy charges was broadcast live to the assembled wedding guests, who watched in stunned silence as FBI agents read his rights and escorted him away from his own reception in handcuffs. Jessica faced immediate arrest on charges related to industrial espionage, harassment, fraud, and conspiracy, with additional state charges pending related to her business license violations and regulatory misconduct. The complete reversal of fortune was captured by wedding photographers and videographers, creating documentation that would become evidence in multiple legal proceedings, while also serving as a permanent record of justice being served publicly and dramatically. Wedding guests who had believed Marcus's narrative about my instability and business failures witnessed the complete collapse of his credibility as evidence mounted showing that every claim he had made about me was false, while every accusation he had denied about his own behavior was true. The aftermath of the reception arrests left Marcus and Jessica facing decades in federal prison, while their wedding celebration became a widely reported example of how sophisticated fraud schemes ultimately fail when victims have resources and determination to seek justice through proper legal channels. The federal sentencing hearing 18 months later brought final closure to the legal proceedings that had consumed Marcus and Jessica's lives since their dramatic wedding reception arrests. Marcus received a sentence of 7 years in federal prison for bank fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy charges, while Jessica was sentenced to 4 years for industrial espionage, fraud, and regulatory violations. My reputation in the business community was completely restored as the truth about Marcus and Jessica's systematic deception campaign became widely known throughout our professional networks. Former clients who had been misled by their false information returned with expanded contracts and referrals, often apologizing for having believed the lies they had been told about my leadership and business ethics. The foundation I established using proceeds from the client flow acquisition focuses specifically on helping victims of financial abuse and economic manipulation within marriages and business relationships. The Deann Marcus Foundation provides legal resources, financial planning assistance, and emotional support for individuals who are experiencing the types of systematic betrayal that nearly destroyed my life. Tyler became my business partner in developing new software solutions that help identify and prevent the types of fraud that Marcus and Jessica had attempted. Our collaboration expanded into consulting services for law enforcement agencies and victim advocacy organizations that need technical expertise in financial crime investigation. Dr. Patricia Williams joined our foundation's advisory board and now leads research initiatives studying economic abuse patterns in relationships and business partnerships. Her academic work has become influential in training programs for lawyers, counselors, and law enforcement professionals who work with victims of sophisticated financial manipulation. Marcus's family members completely severed their relationships with him after learning the full extent of his betrayal and criminal behavior. His parents and siblings offered public apologies for having believed his lies about me, and several family members have become financial supporters of the foundation's work with other victims. Jessica's professional license were permanently revoked, and she faces additional civil lawsuits from former clients who suffered financial losses due to her fraudulent business practices. Her family disowned her after discovering that her entire adult life had been built around deception and exploitation of people who had trusted her. The detective who had worked on my case, Brian Walsh, and I developed a friendship that gradually became something deeper and more meaningful than either of us had expected. Our relationship grew naturally from shared values and mutual respect, rather than from the dramatic circumstances that had brought us together initially. The modest apartment on Maple Street that had represented my apparent defeat became my favorite space for reflection and writing about the experience of surviving betrayal and rebuilding trust in relationships. I kept the apartment even after my financial situation improved, using it as a retreat where I could maintain perspective on what truly matters in life. Client Flow's former clients not only returned, but also brought new business opportunities that exceeded anything I had achieved before the crisis. Many business leaders expressed admiration for how I had handled the situation with integrity and determination, leading to partnership opportunities and consulting arrangements that expanded my influence in the technology industry. The speaking engagements I accepted at conferences and universities focus on helping other entrepreneurs recognize the warning signs of financial abuse and business fraud. My presentations emphasize practical strategies for protecting intellectual property and maintaining financial independence within marriage and business partnerships. Marcus's attempts to appeal his conviction were unsuccessful, and he will remain in federal prison until 2031 at the earliest. Prison officials report that he continues to maintain his innocence and blame others for his situation, showing no evidence of genuine remorse or personal growth during his incarceration. Jessica's deportation proceedings began after her prison sentence was completed, as her fraudulent business activities violated the terms of her immigration status. Her attempts to remain in the United States were unsuccessful, and she returned to Mexico facing additional criminal charges related to international fraud schemes. The legal precedents established through our case have been used in other prosecutions involving similar types of relationship fraud and business theft schemes. Angela Thompson's legal strategies have become models for protecting victims of sophisticated financial abuse while ensuring that perpetrators face appropriate criminal consequences. The wedding venue where Marcus and Jessica's reception became their public arrest returned my security deposit and offered additional compensation after learning that their facility had been used as part of a criminal conspiracy. The venue now includes background checks and fraud prevention measures in their event planning protocols. Former friends who had abandoned me during the crisis gradually attempted to rebuild relationships, though I learned valuable lessons about the difference between fair weather acquaintances and genuine friends who offer support during difficult times. The experience taught me to value quality over quantity in personal relationships. The most profound lesson I learned was that Marcus's greatest weapon had been convincing me to doubt my own worth and judgment. His systematic undermining of my confidence was designed to make me dependent on his validation and unable to trust my own perceptions about what was happening in our relationship. Surviving his betrayal taught me that genuine strength comes not from controlling others, but from maintaining integrity under pressure and building authentic relationships based on mutual respect rather than manipulation or fear. The Foundation's work with other victims has reinforced my understanding that healing requires both justice and personal growth. My relationship with Brian developed slowly and naturally built on shared experiences of seeking truth and justice. Rather than on dramatic rescues or overwhelming passion, we both understand the importance of maintaining individual identities and goals while supporting each other's growth and happiness. The $800,000 from Client Flow's sale provided financial security that allowed me to take risks in helping others, without compromising my own stability. The money became a tool for creating positive change, rather than simply a measure of personal success or security. Looking back, I realized that the crisis forced me to discover inner strength and resourcefulness that I might never have developed if my life had continued along its previous, comfortable, but ultimately shallow path. The experience of losing everything I thought mattered helped me identify what truly matters in building a meaningful life. The Foundation's clients often ask how I found the courage to fight back against such a sophisticated conspiracy. The answer is that courage developed gradually through small acts of self-protection and truth-seeking that eventually built into the determination to seek complete justice and accountability. Marcus and Jessica's downfall came not from my revenge, but from their own greed and overconfidence. They created their own destruction by escalating their crimes beyond what they could manage or conceal, proving that people who build their lives on deception ultimately cannot sustain the lies required to maintain their false success. The experience taught me that justice and healing are not the same thing, though both are necessary for recovery from serious betrayal. Justice addresses the legal and financial aspects of what happened, while healing requires personal growth, forgiveness of oneself, and the development of wisdom that can help prevent similar victimization in the future. Today, the foundation has helped over 300 victims of financial abuse achieve legal justice and emotional recovery. Each success story reinforces my belief that people who maintain their integrity and seek truth with determination can overcome even the most sophisticated attempts to destroy their lives and steal their achievements. The wedding reception arrest became a symbol of how justice can emerge from the most unexpected circumstances when victims refuse to accept defeat and work systematically to expose the truth. The story has been featured in training materials for law enforcement agencies and victim advocacy organizations nationwide. What happened to me could happen to anyone who trusts the wrong person with access to their business finances or personal vulnerabilities. The most important lesson I can share is that protecting yourself requires maintaining some level of independence and skepticism, even within marriage, and always trusting your instincts when something feels wrong about a relationship or business situation. Have you ever experienced a situation where someone you trusted completely turned out to be working against your best interests? I would love to hear your thoughts about recognizing the warning signs of financial manipulation in relationships and how we can better protect ourselves and others from these devastating betrayals. Thank you for following this journey with me. If this story helped you understand the importance of maintaining financial independence and trusting your instincts in relationships, please like this video, subscribe for more stories about overcoming life's challenges, share it with someone who might benefit from hearing about survival and recovery, and comment below with your own experiences or insights about dealing with betrayal and finding justice. Remember that no matter how hopeless your situation might seem, there are always people and resources available to help you fight for the truth and rebuild your life with greater wisdom and strength than before. Your story is not over, and your voice matters in helping others find the courage to seek the justice they deserve.